All right. Hello, welcome everyone to our series of webinars for prospective students as part of the environmental professional programs in the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're glad you could join us today. This is, I think, the third in our series that we'll have up until November 18th. Like all these webinars, we'll get started with a quick 5-minute introduction to the environmental professional programs as a whole, a quick overview in case you're new here or are just discovering us for the first time. And then we will go into the topic for today, which is talking about sort of the distinction between professional master's programs and more traditional research-based master's programs. I'm Sarah Graves. I'll get us started. I'm also joined by my colleague Megan Kautzer, who is the EC program coordinator. She'll introduce herself in a second. And then Nathan Schulfer, the director of our programs. Briefly, the environmental professional programs are housed within the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies. So the Nelson Institute is an interdisciplinary unit on campus and offers numerous undergraduate and graduate degrees. And the environmental professional programs are just one of a few options in the Nelson Institute. What makes them unique, though, and we'll talk a lot about this today, but briefly what makes them unique is they're professional Masters of Science programs. So this means you complete 32 credits in 15 months, and it's for people wanting to advance or change their careers, but not focus on primary research training. Again, this will be the focus of our presentation and our webinar today. Another thing to highlight is that it is cohort-based education. So for us, this means that all students start the program together in the summer and go through the program together, all 4 semesters, taking the same or similar courses, and then graduate at the same time. The cohorts are fairly small. For each program, they range from 15 to 30 students. So you do get to know your classmates very well. And we feel that that interaction and learning with your peers is one of the strongest parts of these programs. And a lot of learning happens just by interacting with each other and taking classes with each other. And finally, I'll highlight that these programs, like a lot of what the Nelson Institute does, is provide interdisciplinary training. So we're not just focused on the biological sciences or the social sciences. We look at complex environmental issues from multiple sides, and that these programs specifically are providing the technical skills with application to these real-world complex problems, not just looking at them from one lens. And because we have this interdisciplinary training and we're in an interdisciplinary institute, there's opportunities for all students to grow your network across many disciplines, however you choose to focus. So I'm talking about environmental professional programs as a whole. What this really means is that we have, one big degree, but we have different program options. So there's the option or the program in environmental conservation, and then the program option in environmental observation and informatics. So these are 2 distinct options, and you apply for either one typically, or you could apply for both, but they are separate programs. The environmental conservation or the EC program is focused on training and navigating complex decision-making, engaging with all people, managing programs, understanding science, and communicating effectively. In contrast, the Environmental Observation and Informatics, or the EOI program, is training in environmental conservation broadly with a focus on remote sensing, GIS, informatics, and really using big data at the intersection of geospatial and environmental fields. So those are the 2 distinct program options within the larger degree. I'll quickly highlight the timeline. I said it was 15 months. That happens over 4 semesters. All students start in the summer, in person in Madison, and continue classes in the fall. So from about June through December, students are in person in Madison on campus. In the spring, all classes are virtual. or online with the option to stay in Madison, but you can choose to be wherever you want in the world. We give that flexibility to all students. And then in the summer, there's no in-person or online classes, but you're working on your project at that location. And we'll talk a lot about that today. So just a little bit more about the project, and won't go into detail because Megan will cover this. That final summer is this leadership project, which is an 8 to 12 week project that combines sort of your individual personal interests with an organizational need. And we match you and help you develop that project for yourself. Again, we'll talk a lot about this today. There's definitely more online. Everything that I talked about and everything that we talked about that we'll talk about later today, there's more information online, so feel free to explore our website. And in the meantime, feel free to ask questions using the Q&A option. We will answer them as they come up or at the end, so don't be shy. Ask questions about anything that you've seen or anything that you will see, and we'll address them as they come in. And just be mindful that we do admit summer term. Our next cohort starts in June with the application deadline of December 1. So that is our quick introduction. I'm going to now switch to our topic for today, which is talking more about why these professional programs are unique and distinct from research-based programs. So Megan, I'll share my screen, but I'll pass it over to you. Give me 1 second to find things again.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Megan. And again, feel free to use the Q&A as Megan presents to answer questions, and we'll address them as they come up or at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Megan Kautzer. And so we'll go into today, what is a professional environmental MS degree? I don't think I can click, Sarah, but you can click for me. Thank you. My internet was being a little wonky this morning, so I asked Sarah to share the screen for me. So my name is Megan Kautzer. I'm the EC program coordinator, and you just heard from Sarah Graves, who is the EOI program coordinator. So in our roles, we coordinate all aspects of the programs, from thinking about prospective students and applications. We will teach in professional seminars and focus on supporting our students specifically in career planning. And a large part of our role is in these final project connections. So supporting students in connecting with organizations to complete that project. Both of us, our backgrounds, and we have training in the discipline that we work with the program, and a network of colleagues in the field. And we, as we both studied this and care about it, we love really making it a role of ours to connect and engage and hear more from colleagues and practitioners that are conservationists out in the field to know what's relevant. So just an overview for what we'll talk about today. We'll start by just making a distinction between a professional program versus a traditional research MS degree. Just talk about typical paths and distinctions. We'll then move into what makes a professional program unique, specifically around timeline, curriculum, and funding. Those are typical questions and the distinctions. And then lastly, we'll dive into what the final project looks like in both the EC or EOI degree. They're individual and unique and applied. So that's the final component of the degree. So that's what we'll walk through today. So master's degrees in the US, the general trend. We shared here, programs vary and each have their own emphasis and requirements. That's across the board for any MS degree. But traditional research focused programs have been the standard. Professionally focused programs are growing as demand from employers for higher education and these professional skills increases. So professional programs and their development across the US are responding to the needs on the ground that we are seeing as and hearing from practitioners as needs in conservation. So to distinguish, there are two types of master's degrees that we'll distinguish today. a research or a traditional MS degree is usually a Master of Science degree. The emphasis is on working directly with a professor on a research question. So think thesis, faculty, independent question. That would be most typical of an MS degree that would have that traditional research-based thesis component. On the other side, there would be what might be known as professional degrees, accelerated, applied, non-thesis. There are a lot of different words to describe them. So that can be an MS or a Master of Science degree, like the ones at the Nelson Institute, or it might be a Master of Environmental Management, something like that. So they're a master's level degree. They might have different names for what denotes what they are. The emphasis is on professional development and typically thinking of work at a non-academic organization. So you would think problem solving and typically no specific research question.
Thanks, Megan. Now we'll go into some of, or the three or four things that we think makes professional master's programs unique. Megan did a highlight there of how we'll distinguish like a research and a professional program. We want to highlight a few things that we get questions about and that we think are really important for making this distinction. So the first one is timeline. So in a professional degree, the timeline can vary. Typically it's 1 to 2 years, and that 1 to 2 year timeline is typically has a higher course load each semester, and there can be a blend of in-person or online classes. For a research degree, most often it's at least 2 years. 2 years is really common. It could be a little bit longer, just depending on the student and the research. And that's just because there's more time dedicated to that independent research or thesis component. For the environmental professional programs at the Nelson Institute, our timeline is 15 months. So it's June to the following August. All students start in June and then graduate together in the following August. And this quick timeline is to efficiently give you like the best training and the strongest network so you can get back to your career. So we know a lot of people are professionals and they want to get going in their career or continue. So we have that accelerating and condensed timeline. That's also one of the things that makes it maybe financially feasible for a lot of people, because you're not taking that much time away from the professional workforce. You're sort of getting in and out pretty quickly relative to what might be typical for a research degree. The next thing is coursework. Coursework, or all of the classes that you have to take with your degree, again, it varies. Master's programs are typically like 30 to 45 credits from what we've seen. In professional programs, they tend to be more planned. So there's often like a set list of courses or some selected course options that are specifically designed to meet the program learning goals. So it's set up for you. You don't have to like find classes to take from all over, but there often is some flexibility in which classes you choose. In contrast, most research programs, not all, but they have most of them are sort of self-built in the curriculum. So there probably are some required courses and some themes you have to meet. But oftentimes you design the courses or the classes that you take based on what would be most helpful for your field, your interest, and specifically your research topic. So you have to oftentimes figure out what classes to take, fit them into your schedule, and then sort of combine those courses with perhaps research responsibilities or teaching responsibilities if you have an assistantship. So those are some big distinctions. For the environmental professional programs here at the Nelson Institute, our programs are 32 credits, and most of these courses happen in the first 3 semesters. So the first 28 credits happen in the first 3 semesters. And most of these courses are set for you. The curriculum is very deliberate and structured and designed to develop on your learning as you go through time. And again, you take courses with your cohort, so you're in the same learning environment with your peers. For both programs, there is an elective option in the fall. So there's an opportunity to choose a special area of interest or get some background that you feel like will be needed for your individual project or your career going forward. And something we particularly want to highlight with these professional programs, no surprise, is that professional development and leadership skills are integrated into the curriculum. So here we have a diagram of different topics that are covered in these programs. So for example, geospatial technology is a focus of the EOI program. Community-based conservation is more of a focus of the EC program. So there's these program-specific curriculum or learning goals for each program. But then for both programs, there are elements of professional development leadership skills. So professional development, leadership development, communication, people skills, environmental ethics. These are deliberately integrated into the curriculum. If you have questions about the curriculum, be sure to check out our next webinar because we'll go into more detail about these topics and some of the learning goals specifically. Another thing that makes all professional master's programs unique is the funding landscape and the opportunities for funding for students. And I know this is a question we get all the time. It's so critical to be thinking about funding your graduate education. So we'll cover a little bit here, but please ask us questions and we're happy to follow up with anyone individually. But I'll give you kind of a general overview of the funding landscape. So for professional programs, there's many options. No one program is the same. That's sort of the theme of a lot of what we're saying. But for most programs, there's no assistantship position. So no teaching assistantship, no research assistantship. But there's often several internal and external funding options to provide partial or full support. So you might have to be a little bit more proactive in where you're seeking funding if you're looking for a professional program. And again, the shorter timeline in the degree is also a significant consideration. So that does impact funding and how your future investment looks. And we have a document that we can share that sort of compares that or highlights that. So in contrast, research master's programs are often associated with assistantships or like a job position at the university. So you, if admitted to a program, a research program, you might also be offered a funding package that looks like a teaching or research assistantship. This might include a tuition waiver, so you don't have to pay tuition for the program, and a stipend to support your cost of living. These are often competitive. It's really based on, a faculty advisor or the department. But if you're looking at research positions, assistantships are typically associated with those types of programs. For the environmental professional programs, we offer tuition assistance awards. These are like scholarships. And we know students use a variety of other ways to fund themselves. So we do have a strong tuition assistance award that anyone who's applying to the program can also apply for, and this would help reduce the tuition costs. In addition to this award, most students also apply for loans, especially US students. There's also external scholarships and grants, and then most students do work part-time while in the program just to have a little bit of spending money. We know this is a really big topic though, like I said, and so we have more information on our FAQ page. So if you go to our website and you look, scroll to the bottom, you'll see the FAQ page. There's a whole section on program costs and tuition that outlines some different ways people have funded themselves. And we're going to be adding more information as we go just on other sources of funding that our students have received to support themselves in the program. Finally, I'll just introduce or say again this final requirement. And the final requirement of master's degrees is one of the biggest distinctions between a professional program, and a research-based program. So for professional programs, it varies. Often there is an applied project. This could be a capstone project, or they might call it like the final culmination of the program. There's a bunch of different names. We call it something else, but know that there's this final component where you're often working directly with a non-academic organization to apply and gain skills and grow your network. The project also focuses on generating professional deliverables. So it's something that the organization could use to advance their goals and their mission and their applied conservation and environmental work. For a research program, that final project is often a research thesis, which seeks to answer an independent research question. And this is usually under the guidance of a faculty advisor and a committee. Not always, but most often the goal is to publish those results in a scientific journal and sort of defend them to the scientific community, because you're generating new knowledge about the world and advancing science. I'm going to hand it over to Megan, who will talk more about this. But for our programs, we have the Summer Leadership Project, which is the program culminates in the Summer Leadership Project. It's applied, it's with a leading organization. They're individualized, they're purposeful, and they support ongoing conservation work. We know this is a huge interest, so Megan's going to talk more about this specifically.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'll just note that any Q&A or questions that come in, we will talk about at the end as well, if it doesn't get answered right now. So how do EC and EOI students find their projects? Sarah noted that professional programs have this distinction, right? So the final cumulative experience is typically working with a non-academic organization. But in specific, the environmental professional programs at the Nelson Institute is unique compared to other professional programs around the US. So what we can do is speak to how we support our students in connecting and finding their projects. For example, some institutions might have, a list of here are the 4 or 5 organizations we work with. You can pick one based on these parameters, what most aligns with your interest. How we approach it is making sure that each project is unique to the individual. So Sarah and I, this is seriously one of my favorite parts of the whole program. We really get to know students very well. In our roles, we set up one-on-one meetings with students and really dig deeper into just where they are in their career, what their natural abilities are, their professional skill sets, the gaps that they feel they might have. Think about their professional goals, their passions and interests. And once we start to get more of that information from students, we are then also reflecting on and thinking about, okay, what organizations do we know are working on the topic area that interests the student, whether it's water or indigenous rights or forestry, or really any of the topics that our students might be interested in. We might also think about, okay, this student expressed interest in growing their skill set around communication or conservation planning or geospatial data management or creating dashboards and tools to make effective decisions with information. So every single student, as you can imagine, comes in with varying levels of professional experience, different degrees, different interest areas, different professional gaps, of course, and certainly different priorities. So we work one-on-one with students to make sure, okay, do you prioritize your geographic region that you want to work in after the program? Is a priority the topic that you want to work with? Like, it doesn't matter what I do as long as I'm working with freshwater. Other students are different. They prioritize, I don't care what I'm working with as long as I'm able to apply my GIS skills and skills in conservation planning. So because each student has that variability and that uniqueness about them, Sarah and I work really close with them throughout the process to facilitate a connection with organizations that we know might be doing work in that area. So in the field with these leadership projects, we kind of describe it as professional matchmaking. So it looks different for every student, both in the process and the timeline, but also who they end up working with. Most of our students are working with large NGOs, places like Conservation International or IUCN or the Nature Conservancy. Many of our students are working with state or federal agencies. So the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources or any state natural resource management system, or the Youth Fish and Wildlife Service. Students also work with private companies as well as smaller nonprofits. That could be local, it could be in Wisconsin, the Midwest, regional across the US, international. Really, there's no limitation certainly, but we do talk with each student about what would make the most sense for them professionally, what would really help them build their professional repertoire and their skill sets and their network. So those priorities vary, dramatically from student to student, and it's really it's a puzzle that Sarah and I really enjoy facilitating. How to figure out how these students and their skill sets connect with organizations that are doing this work. So the process is actually, once we reach out to organizations, we hear about what projects that are ongoing for them, what their biggest priorities and needs are and what their mission is, and facilitate how our student could connect with them to engage with them and work on projects and produce outputs and deliverables that really align with their work. So just to go, I wanted to share a few examples of students that came into our program and kind of how that all linked up. So here's an example. August, he was a student in the EY program. His background was in chemistry and environmental studies. He was a younger student, so a little less in professional experience, but his goal was to advance GIS knowledge and gain experience applying data and skills to environmental issues. So it was quite broad. And the outcome was connecting him with the Nature Conservancy in Long Island that were working on this solar project. So he specifically in his project created land cover maps to quantify potential areas for solar development. And so through his project, was then now works as a current job in remote sensing, being a remote sensing analyst for USGS. Do the next one. Josh's background was in botany, and he came in with this goal of gaining programming experience and applying his knowledge of trees and climate. So the outcome, Sarah connected him, I think is it Salo Sciences or Salo? I hope I'm saying it right.
Yeah, I think it's Salo.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Sciences, yeah.
So through many conversations and working through an entire proposal process that's on the student, supported by us, came to this outcome of he mapped the probability of tree mortality using remote sensing data and machine learning algorithms. And his current job is he's now started his own company and gets independent contracts for geospatial work. Very cool. So an EC example, Marika. Marika's background is in journalism and radio production, and Marika actually had decades of experience before coming to the program. But her goal was really to think about using her communication skills to facilitate solutions, specifically supporting wildlife. She was really inspired by the conservation planning course in the EC program, and so the outcome of her project was she guided and coached 3 project teams on species conservation plans using the conservation standards, specifically with the International Crane Foundation and Endangered Wildlife Trust in South Africa. And now she's a conservation strategist and planning coach. And our last example, just of how students link up with the project, is Xian. Xian had a background in conservation biology. She was a recent undergrad graduate when she joined the program, and she really just wanted to contribute at the intersection of climate change and human health impacts. So she ended up connecting with the Equal Health Alliance and researched and communicated around emerging infectious disease spillover due to global change, both climate and increased human-wildlife interaction. And her current job is the Southeast Asia program manager and research scientist, actually at Equal Health Alliance. She made some really strong professional connections there. So wrapping up right on time, that was our overview of just the distinction between a professional MS degree and a research-based MS degree. We're open to questions and we'd love to address them. We did have a Q&A question come in that looks like it was answered, but Sarah, would you want to just speak to that so we have it on our recording?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the questions. And again, keep questions coming with the Q&A. All three of us are here to answer and we can hang out for another half an hour as long as people need to. If you don't have any questions and you feel like you got all the info you needed, feel free to sign off. All this will be recorded if you want to come back and revisit them later. So one of the questions was about financial assistance for international students. The primary way we have financial support for students in our professional programs is with our Tuition Assistance Award. And all students or all applicants, international, domestic, are eligible to apply for that award. So that's the primary financial support that we have. You can take a look at that on our costs and funding page or in our FAQ page where there's more info about that Tuition Assistance Award and how to apply. And if you have individual questions or you just want more information, feel free to contact us. On our website, there's a contact us page or get in touch with us directly. Nathan Schilfer also is our international, the director of international programs. So he works with international students a lot and is happy to have conversations with you. So start with the website, the cost and funding page or the FAQ page, and then get in touch with us with other questions. We'll also be updating our website over the next couple weeks or so with more information because we know this is a really important topic. So that's that question. Megan, could you, well, I see you're typing a response to the next question. Maybe you could answer it out loud as well.
Yes, and I was just going to add one thing about the funding question for all students. The assistantship question, that often when you are in a traditional research-based MS degree and you do get an assistantship, that is typically a 33% or a 50% appointment, which means that you would reduce your credit hours by X amount to then have 50% of your time dedicated as a TA or a PA or an RA, as an example. So that's where the assistantships, because of the accelerated model, you move through the program in 15 months. With that structure, it really gets you to and through, but that's where you don't have the flexibility to reduce your credit hours in any one semester to take on an assistantship. And one thing I was going to say too is that for US students, that work study is a great opportunity that students often engage with as a part-time job, 5 to 10 hours a week. They're very aware you're a student and they're often with an agency, so a state agency that gives you a certain amount of money each semester to do a very defined set of deliverables for them during each semester. So students often engage in work study positions. And we share those opportunities as they come up. People are aware now that we have great students to do them, so they send us those work study positions even before they're posted. One of our questions was, and I seem to have lost it. Oh, the application process. I suggest taking a look at our how to apply page on our website. We could put it in the chat, or Sarah's pulled it up here. Awesome, thanks, Sarah. And then also I just looked up on November 18th, we have another webinar coming up, reminders and tips for a strong application. So we can walk through what the application process looks like, and really just tips for how to submit the strongest application that you can. So take a look there, and hopefully it'll answer a lot of your questions about the application process. But of course, as we have like everywhere throughout our website, feel free to reach out to us individually, send us an email, and we're happy to respond or set up a call and quick chat through the application process or anything. Contact us. Great. Thanks, Sarah. Good questions. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in there. Otherwise, it looks like that's the end of the questions we see. So thanks to everybody for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll just pause here for any other last minute questions as they're coming in. Nathan, do you have anything else to add? You've been in this professional master's degree research degree space for a while. Any final thoughts on this?
Nothing extra to add. I think this is a really great topic for a webinar because there are so many questions about what the distinctions are between a research degree and a professional degree. And it's hard to always understand the subtle distinctions. But it's also really important and helpful to take some time to think about what's best for you and what approach is best. Master's degree is a different kind of investment. We all know that. It's because it's fast and the expectations are a bit higher for the kind of work you do than your undergrad. Making sure you're in the right program that's focused on the right kinds of outcomes helps you invest your time better in the degree and makes your learning better. So a great topic.
Great, thank you. And we will send the recording out. So anyone who's joined live today, you or registered, you'll get an email tomorrow with a link to where the recording will be. Megan can also put it in the Q&A right now. This will be posted online for you to view later, and you can also go back and view the other webinars as well. So this is the page where things will be posted. So you can find it just on our main website. There's a link to it, and also for each program. You can see our other sessions. So we had a session with Nathan on current trends and priorities for conservation around the world. Following that, we had a specific focus on careers with an environmental conservation degree. So those are posted now, and we'll post the other ones, a couple days after. So feel free to check that. But if you've registered, you'll also get a reminder and a direct link. All right. We will hang out for maybe 1 or 2 minutes left in addition, but thank you all for joining us in our third series of this webinar. We hope you come back and check out the other ones on the curriculum and then how to apply. All right, thank you all.